Hey everybody out there, this is Seto Kaiba from your Yu-Gi-Oh! Chat channel, and today guys we're going to be talking about two particular cards in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Two Battle Phase trap cards, and by saying Battle Phase and by looking at the title, you probably know by now what two cards I'm referring to. I am referring to Mirror Force, and I'm referring to Dimensional Prison, or DP for short. So we're going to be talking about these two cards here, Mirror Force and D Prison, and which one is possibly the better one. Now, in today's game, not everybody runs Deep Prison and Mirror Force like they used to back in the day. Back in the day, in the land before time, in the long, long ago. If anybody got that reference, you get the brownie points for this round. But Mirror Force came out in Metal Raiders, and back in the day, this card was amazing. Metal Raiders is the set that got me into the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! But on another note, Battle Phase cards back then were good. Mirror Force was a good card. If I remember correctly, my mind could be deceiving me here, but back in the day, Mirror Force I think was banned for a time. My mind could be deceiving me there. My old brain cannot be working properly maybe, but I can't remember exactly. I do know that for the most history of Yu-Gi-Oh! Mirror Force was limited to one. Up until I think 2011, 2012, when it actually got bumped up to 2, and it stayed at 2 since then, until when this video was being made, which is in May of 2014. So maybe May of 2015, Mirror Force would be at 3, but you just have to remember that if you're watching this video in the future. But Mirror Force is not, it does have its downsides. Both the Mirror Force and D Prison have its downsides, like I stated earlier, because they only activate during the battle phase, and they are susceptible, if I said that correctly, susceptible to things like, MST, Tinky, Bear, Pop. They activate Tinky, search the bear, summon the bear, pop the Tinky, pop your back row, things of that nature. Things of this nature, they're not as good as they used to, so some people in general just don't even run these cards no more. They run things like Trap Stun, or 7 Tools of the Bandit, or that new trap card, I believe it's called, it just came out in Dragons of Legend, Wiretap. Will they run Wiretap, or things of this nature? They run different cards that are more useful, especially Trap Stun, which is seemed to come back more in style like it was. There was actually a phase where Trap Stun used to be very good, and then it died off, and now it's picking back up momentum of people running Trap Stun instead of things like Mirror Force and D Prison. So let's look at the upsides. We know the downsides. They're both battle phase trap cards. So let's look at Mirror Force first now. Mirror Force says to your opponent, if you're going to summon a lot of monsters and then attack me without having a Lance or a Trap Stun, you're going to regret that. Especially if you have monsters that say, don't say, can't destroy by battle, or things like Lead Yoke. That's one of the downsides of both these cards. If you activate a Mirror Force on a Lead Yoke, you're making the opponent's monster bigger, unless it's used up all its overlay units and they don't have a Lance or something of that nature on the card. But if you activate a D Prison on a Lead Yoke, you're banishing the Lead Yoke. So that's one of the downsides of Mirror Force. It only destroys the cards, and if you're running against cards like Bujin Yamato, things of this nature, where they can stop the destruction, or Visionary, or Stardust Spark Dragon, things of this nature, it's not as good because they can prevent themselves from being destroyed. But on the upside, it can destroy a lot of monsters. And late game, Mirror Force can be a good top deck for the fact that your opponent may have used up their Trap Stuns, their Lances, and they may not have a lot of big monsters out in the field, and you pretty much, both of you going back and forth with just attacking with Beat Stick type monsters. And Mirror Force in those situations can be very good. It's not as good as it's used for. Usually when I activate Mirror Force, I get 2 monsters destroyed, or I get 3 monsters destroyed at the most. Sometimes you go 1 for 1. But it's only in those rare occasions do you do that, unless you can't seem to draw a monster and your opponent's just bashing your head in with a 800 attack monster. So Mirror Force comes in handy. As one of my friends have always said to me, one of my friends, Will, has always told me, never run Mirror Forces and D Prisons in a Dragon deck because it's just a Dragon deck. It's kind of a little thing we have going on, like, you don't run traps in Dragon decks, like battle phase traps, because you're always doing the attacking with a Dragon type deck. It's all aggro most of the time. But that's a little bit of me and him kind of back and forth, like talking and discussing about that. But that is Mirror Force. Now on to D-Prison. D-Prison can only target one monster. So if your opponent's spamming the field with a whole bunch of monsters, you only can choose one to banish. So that's the downside. But the fact is, it can get around things like that say cannot be destroyed by battle. You can just banish the thing outright. So like I used earlier in my analogy, if I activate Mirror Force on a lead yoke is going to still survive if it's still got overlay units. But if I activate a D-Prison on a lead yoke, that just banishes that lead yoke and says, get out of here, punk. But those are the upsides. Can get around cards that say cannot destroy by battle. So I know some people don't run these cards, but I personally run Mirror Forces and D-Prisons in all of my decks for the most part. Not all of my decks, but in many of my decks. And it doesn't really matter to me which one I run. But some days I do feel like D-Prison's better than Mirror Force, and some days I feel Mirror Force is better than D-Prison. So my question to you is, after talking about these two cards, which card do you feel is better? Do you feel that D-Prison is better, or do you feel that Mirror Force is better? And why do you feel it is better? In today's game, where we have Bujin Yamatos and cards that say cannot be destroyed by battle more than we used to, I kind of feel D-Prison is a little bit more better than Mirror Force, but that's just player preference. I think it's player preference which either one you run. I've seen people run 2 Mirror Forces and 1 D-Prison. I've seen people run 2 D-Prisons and 1 Mirror Force. But, like I said before, which card do you feel is better? And until next time, guys, take care, have fun dueling, good luck dueling, and I'll see you guys next time. Seto Kaiba, I'm out of here, guys.